Indianapolis, Indiana, June 26, 1977, 11:47 in the evening. The lights at Market Square Arena are beginning to shift. Not the full house lights, not yet, but something in the quality of the stage lighting has changed. The way light changes when an evening is entering its final phase. The musicians can feel it. The 18,000 people in the seats can feel it. There is a particular texture to the air inside a concert arena, in the last minutes of a show, a specific combination of heat and sweat and collective emotion that has been building for 2 hours and is now approaching something. Elvis Presley is at the microphone. He has been on stage for nearly 2 hours. The set list has moved through 20 songs, through C.C. Rider and Jailhouse Rock, and It's Now or Never, and Hound Dog, and all the others. The architecture of a career laid out in order. Song after song, carrying a different version of the man, and the voice, and the years. He has given the audience everything the evening asked of him. And the audience, all 18,000 of them, have given it back. Now he is standing at the microphone in the final minutes. And he is about to sing the last song. He has sung this song to close every concert for years. It is not simply a finale. It is a ritual. A way of ending that has become so familiar, so expected, so deeply embedded in the relationship between Elvis Presley and the people who come to see him, that the first notes are a signal. The audience knows what those notes mean. They mean the evening is ending. They mean it is almost time to go home. They mean goodbye. What nobody in that arena knows, what Elvis himself may or may not have known, in whatever deep part of a person knows things before the mind articulates them, is that this goodbye is different from all the others. This is the last one, to understand what Can't Help Falling in Love meant to Elvis. Why he chose it, why he kept it, why it became the ritual closing of every concert. For years, you have to go back to where it began. The song was written in 1961 by Hugo Peretti, Luigi Creatore, and George David Weiss, built on the melody of a French song called Plaisir d'amour. Elvis recorded it for the film Blue Hawaii. It was released as a single in November of that year and reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was a hit. Many of his songs were hits, but something about this one stayed. It is not the fastest song he ever recorded. It is not the most technically demanding. It does not showcase the full range of the voice the way How Great Thou Art does, or the emotional rawness of the way he would later approach Unchained Melody. It is, by the measurements usually applied to these things, a simple song. And yet, wise men say only fools rush in. But I can't help falling in love with you. There is something in that lyric, in the specific confession of it, the admission that love is not a choice, but a force that overrides reason, that seems to have spoken to something true in Elvis Presley. Not the performed version of him, not the king who could fill any arena in America. The other one. The one who had grown up poor in Tupelo with a mother who believed he was destined for something she couldn't name. The one who had learned to sing in a church before he learned that singing could make him famous. The one who had loved people really loved them, in the consuming and sometimes destructive way of someone who does not do anything by half measures, and lost some of them, and been unable to stop loving them even after the losing. Shall I stay? Would it be a sin if I can't help falling in love with you? He had been asking that question his whole life, about music, about people, about the audiences who gave him something he could not get anywhere else, and whom he gave something back that he could not fully explain. He chose it to close every concert because it was true. Not all closing songs are true. Many are simply effective, the right tempo, the right key change, the right emotional escalation to send people home satisfied. Can't Help Falling in Love was all of those things. But it was also true in the specific way that certain songs are true for certain singers. the way they fit the interior landscape of the person performing them in a way that transcends the performance. If you grew up with Elvis's music, or if someone in your family did, this channel is built for stories, like the one you are watching right now. Subscribe if you want to see more of what the cameras never fully captured. And if you have a memory connected to this song, a moment in your life when it reached you, a person it makes you think of, a time you heard it and understood something you hadn't understood before, tell us in the comments. Those memories matter. We want to hear them. The people who attended multiple Elvis concerts in the 1970s describe the moment Can't Help Falling in Love began in a specific and consistent way. They describe recognition, not just of the song of the moment. The first notes were a signal, and the signal said, "We are reaching the end of something." Everyone in the room understood it simultaneously. The shared knowledge that this particular evening, this specific gathering of a performer and an audience in a specific city on a specific night was about to conclude. And Elvis understood that they understood. This is one of the things that distinguished him as a live performer, his almost preternatural sensitivity to the emotional state of the people in front of him. He could read an audience the way a skilled reader reads text, quickly and completely, catching the nuances that most people miss. He knew when they were with him and when they weren't. He knew when a room had been moved and when it was only going through the motions of being moved. He knew, in the specific way that people know things, they have been trained by long experience to know what 18,000 people were feeling at any given moment. On June 26, 1977, he knew what they were feeling at 11:47 in the evening when the opening notes began. They were feeling love, not the love of a crowd for a celebrity, something older than that, something that had been building for 2 hours, something that the songs and the voice and the specific, irreplaceable presence of Elvis Presley in a room had produced over the course of an evening. They were feeling the particular love that live performance creates, the love that exists only in the shared space between a performer and an audience, and cannot be reproduced in a recording or a photograph or any other form, and he was feeling it back. This is the thing that the people who were there say when they try to describe June 26th, not just what they saw or heard, but what they felt. They felt seen. They felt that the man on the stage was not performing at them, but performing with them, that the evening was a collaboration, a thing they had built together, and that Can't Help Falling in Love was the moment they acknowledged it. Take my hand, take my whole life too, for I can't help falling in love with you. The guitar line underneath those words. The specific way Elvis's voice lands on falling, not rushing the syllable, not extending it beyond what the melody asks, but landing on it with the full weight of the word and what it means. Surrendering to something larger than yourself. Accepting that love is not a decision you make, but a fact you discover. The audience sang with him. At some point during that final performance of Can't Help Falling in Love on June 26th, a significant portion of 18,000 people were singing along with Elvis Presley. Not the way audiences sing along with songs they have memorized in the passive way of people who have heard them many times. The way people sing when they mean it. When the words apply, Elvis heard them. There is a moment in Can't Help Falling in Love, a specific moment that happens in the final chorus that people who saw Elvis perform it live describe differently from the rest of the song. It is the moment before the last verse. A brief suspension, a fraction of a second in the musical structure where the song pauses between what has been said and what is about to be said for the last time. Elvis made his choice, and the people in that arena, at least the ones close enough to see his face, understood what they were looking at. He looked out at the audience. Not the way a performer looks at an audience in the middle of working them. Not the scanning, reading, connecting look of a professional managing a room. This was different. The people who were there and who described this moment consistently reach for the same word. He looked at them. The way you look at something you are about to leave. The way you look at a room before you walk out of it. for the last time, not with sadness. There is something important about that. Not with any visible awareness of what was coming. No theatrical farewell. No indication that he was doing anything other than what he had always done. Just a look. Present. Complete. 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 Taking them all in. And then he sang the final verse.
Thank you very much.
Wise men say only fools rush in. But I can't help falling in love with you. The repetition of the opening line. At the close. The song circles back to where it began. The admission that this is not a rational thing. That love and surrender and the giving of yourself to something larger than yourself cannot be calculated or managed. They can only be felt. His voice on that final verse on that specific night, in that specific arena, in the last minutes of the last concert he would ever give, is something that the people who witnessed it describe in terms that feel out of proportion to what is objectively happening. A man singing a song at the end of a show, a familiar song, a ritual closing, and yet, the last note hung in the air. For a long moment, Elvis Presley stood at the microphone at Market Square Arena in Indianapolis on June 26, 1977, in the silence after the final note. The house lights had not come up yet. The audience was still. The musicians on stage were still. Then the arena erupted. 18,000 people on their feet. Elvis raised one hand. He lowered it. He said goodnight. He walked off the stage. On August 16, 1977, 51 days after the concert in Indianapolis, Elvis Presley was found at Graceland. He was 42 years old. The moment the news broke, something happened to Can't Help Falling in Love. It had always been a closing song, a ritual farewell, a gentle ending. The 3 minutes that came at the close of every Elvis Presley concert and signaled that the evening was over and the audience could go home. It was beloved. Of course, it was beloved. Everything he touched became beloved, but it was beloved in the specific way of a familiar thing. And then, he was gone, and the song became something else. The people who had been in that arena on June 26th understood this immediately, because they had been present for the last one. They had been in the room when Elvis Presley sang Can't Help Falling in Love for the final time and said goodnight and walked off a stage. And they had not known, could not have known, that they were witnessing the last of something. And now they knew. There is a particular grief that comes from learning, after the fact, that an ordinary moment was not ordinary. That the last time you saw someone, or heard something, or experienced something you loved was already over before you understood it was the last time. The people in Market Square Arena on June 26, 1977, had not known to hold on. They sang along. They stood and applauded when it ended. They said goodnight to each other in the parking lot and drove home and went to sleep and woke up the next morning and went about their lives. And 51 days later, they understood what they had been part of. There is one more thing to say about Can't Help Falling in Love and what it has become. In every concert, Elvis Presley gave in the years before Indianapolis, hundreds of concerts, thousands of performances, the song was an ending. The audiences who heard it said goodbye, knowing they would be back. The ritual of the closing song is embedded in the expectation of return. On June 26, 1977, the closing song was still embedded in that expectation. The audience at Market Square Arena went home knowing, or believing, which in that moment was the same thing that there would be another concert. It did not repeat, and so the song became, permanently and irreversibly, the last one. The closing of a career that had begun 23 years earlier in a recording studio in Memphis. The final note of a voice that had come from a church in Tupelo, that had found its way onto a record, and then onto the radio, and then onto television, and then into arenas on 4 continents, and finally into a single room in Indianapolis on a June night. The final note, after which there was Silence. And then there was applause. And then Elvis Presley walked off the stage. The moment passed, the way all moments do. The people went home. The arena emptied. The crew broke down the equipment. The city of Indianapolis slept. Somewhere in the Midwest, 18,000 people carried the evening home with them. The songs, the voice, the specific quality of the light in a large arena when something important is happening. They carried it without knowing, quite yet, what they were carrying. Elvis Presley was many things to many people. To the 18,000 people in Market Square Arena on June 26, 1977, he was someone who stood at a microphone and said, "Don't. I can't help falling in love with you," and meant it, and then said goodnight, and then walked away. That is what they were left with. That is what they will always have. If this is the kind of Elvis history you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. There are more moments, more people, and more untold stories still to document from the greatest entertainer who ever lived. And if you have a connection to what you just watched, if you were in that arena on June 26th, or if you heard the news 51 days later and knew immediately what the song had become, or if Can't Help Falling in Love means something specific to you that this story helped you understand, leave it in the comments. The people who were part of this era are still here. We want to hear from them.